Welcome to the 5-7 podcast. I'm your host, Mike Pre, and today I am starting something a little different. I am going to be interviewing one of my listeners. His name is Alex Tissot, and I'll give him an opportunity to introduce himself. And Alex, how's it going, man?
It's going great, man. Glad to be here. Thanks for inviting.
Where are you located at?
I'm in Los Angeles, California.
Oh, how long have you been there?
I've been here most of my life, man.
Okay. So why don't you tell us a bit about yourself?
Well, shoot. Nobody's never asked me that before, man.
It's kind of a trick question, you know, and it's kind of funny because I think it's interesting because when you ask somebody, hey, tell me something about yourself. Like me personally, it's like how do I get on my high horse and talk about myself? Do you know what I mean? Like other people, they can do it pretty easily, but I usually try to be a pretty humble guy, you know? So you can go ahead and build yourself up if you like.
All right. Well, my name's Alex. I was born in France. I came here when I was about 10 years old. And then I've been living the California dream ever since. I spent 4 years in the Marine Corps. I was field artillery. And as a hobby now, I collect pocket knives. I like to shoot guns. And I like to listen to the 57 podcasts.
Thanks, man. So how would you say is the climate? Is it comparable from Los Angeles to France?
Oh, well, that's funny, man. So I come from a town or an area in France where most people might not realize, but it snows 6 months out of the year.
Okay.
And it's extreme cold climate, probably similar to like Chicago during the winter, but 6 months out of the year. So, but everything's very green and very lush. The air's very thick, and you're at sea level. So when I first landed on a plane as a kid, I still remember like today, I land in Los Angeles, you know, kind of inland, and it's kind of like this. It's almost like a desert kind of like environment when you start getting east a little bit, and I couldn't even breathe, man. It was so hot. So, and then even better yet, I didn't even have any idea what earthquakes were. And then, you know, 6 months after I land, I experienced my first earthquake. I'm like, what in the hell is that? Wow. So, interesting place, you know, California.
So where does so you're in the Marines for 4 years. Where do you do the field art, like your AIT? Where do you do that at?
So field artillery, for those that don't know, I mean, it's a little different now because it can be operated with like 2 people. There's a rocket assisted propelled, but we were old school. We were the 155 millimeter howitzers, and to shoot those, you need a lot of space. So typically, I spent my time in Camp Pendleton, and we would train also in 29 Palms, which is a huge desert of nothing. And we'd also train every once in a while we'd go out of state. But mostly Pendleton and 29 Palms was where I would go shooting.
I served with a field artillery unit. We're in the Army. There are 13 Bravos, and it was the same deal. They needed a ton of space to fire off those howitzers.
Hell yeah.
So why don't you tell me about your YouTube page? What exactly, like, what are you doing with your YouTube page?
Oh yeah, so I have a YouTube channel. It's called Alex's Knifebox. I'm a knife collector, and anything from cheap to expensive custom knives. And I hate to call myself a reviewer because I'm nowhere near an expert, but I just basically showcase knives. I talk about them and go from the blade to the handle and the scales, and kind of point out some things that maybe somebody who might be shopping for a pocket knife might be looking into, and just different features you can find on pocket knives. So just a pocket knife junkie kind of thing. I know this is a pretty broad question, but what is the difference between a good knife and a really bad knife? You know, so this would have been a better question maybe 10 years ago. 10 years ago, you would have had the steel options and the way knives were built. There's more of a wider gap between a good knife and a bad knife. It's gotten really popular since the, I want to say, late like 2010, it started kind of kicking off, and now there's this whole knife community. And so, like, you know, blade steel is one thing. It's like Skittles. There's tons of flavors of blades. There's blades that are really hard and can take a good impact and keep a nice edge. But then if you strike them too hard, they'll shatter. And then there's other knives that are softer steel, and they'll be less likely to shatter, but then the edge doesn't hold as long. There's knives that are very corrosion resistant. There's knives that are very flexible, like you could use as a pry bar. So there's kind of a different niche for any kind of thing you really need. So when people ask me what kind of knife they should purchase, if you're somebody who just wants to have a nice pocket knife, you know, it depends what you do with it. But I always tell people, try to spend around $100, and for a lot of people that sounds crazy.
You know, it's really funny because, you know, a knife can be used like so many different ways. Like, for instance, say I do IT for a living, so sometimes we have boxes come in, and
Yep.
these boxes are normally they're thicker than your average box. You know, so getting a box cutter, you know, it's just not enough. You need something a little bit more. You know, so like I carry a Benchmade Casbah, and I use that bad boy, and it cuts right through it. And
Yeah.
But, you know, someone asks like, hey, what did you spend on that? I'm like, yeah, I spent $160. Like, how do you spend $160 on a knife? You know, and it's like,
Yeah.
but I'm like, but, you know, 20 minutes ago, I saw this guy hacking away with a, you know, a box cutter, and like my knife just cut like right through it, you know, and I'm like, that's the difference, you know? And I think it kind of maybe goes into maybe the politics of today's day and age, where they're like, oh, you have a knife. What do you need that for? You know, do you think that people in general look at maybe individuals who carry knives, maybe look down on them a little bit?
So this is a very, very interesting thing you brought up. So, like, for example, myself, I've been a collector for a long time. I work at a car dealership. I'm a service advisor. I work with broken cars. And since all my coworkers know me already, they already know I have either like something ridiculous in my pocket or very flashy. Now, you know, and so around my workplace, it's not really a big deal. I've already desensitized and pulled a knife on everybody. But yeah, there is this stigma that they think that when you look at a knife, there will be those people that will look at it. It's either a tool or it's a weapon, you know, and I'll be truthful. They're kind of both. But, you know, when people try to get all kind of into that whole weapon subject, if you really want my truth on the subject, I mean, a knife as a weapon, it's a pretty stupid weapon to have, because if you're fighting somebody else with a knife, you're both going to get cut, you're both going to get hurt, and you're both going to lose.
Yeah.
So
it's not like a Steven Seagal movie, you know? Like in Under Siege when he's fighting, what's his name, Tommy Lee Jones, and they've got their little knife fight going on.
Oh, yeah. Or like, you know?
Yeah.
You remember that movie Hunted?
Yeah.
Same thing.
with Benicio del Toro.
Oh, yeah.
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 When didn't he throw like a knife, like practically through like a tree?
Exactly. Actually, so that particular knife has its own history with a very famous outdoors guy named Tom Brown, and they use that. They call it a tracker pattern, and they made that very, very elegant in that movie. And it's funny because when that movie came out, all of a sudden everybody wanted a tracker knife. Unfortunately, I bought one too. It's a great knife, but it's not really useful for outdoors.
I looked them up, man. I almost bought one myself.
Yeah, they look really cool.
Yeah, they do. Do they have any utility? Like, I mean, obviously, I've seen them try to use it to cut wood and do various different things. Is there really a lot of utility to those types of knives?
So some of those knives, like I'll use this Tom Brown tracker, and listeners can look it up online if you want to see what it looks like. But the knife is a very large profile. It's got a saw kind of back to it up at the top of the spine, and it's got this really crazy dual grind that's supposed to be really strong and able to. So I have I like to do a little bit of outdoor stuff, and I've carried that knife and tried to split wood with it before. It's freaking useless. It's too thick. It doesn't bite into anything. You can't baton with it. So for an outdoors knife, which is what it was intended for, it's pretty much useless.
Okay.
There's much better knives out there for that. But there are people who have refined that knife, different companies, thinned it out, made it a little bit more useful, but all in all, it's just a gimmick, man.
What would you consider a good beginner knife? Maybe give like 2 different models that you would, or maybe 3 models that you would say, this is good for maybe this type of person. This is good for, a different type of person. What would you recommend?
Well, so like if you're an outdoors person and you want to have just a nice, good sized pocket knife on you, first of all, don't buy a folding knife. A folding knife for outdoors purposes, in my unprofessional opinion, is kind of useless. Get a fixed blade. If you want to split wood, baton with it, start fires, and kind of make shavings to do all that stuff. A good company that I really recommend that's quite affordable is Bark River Knives. They're, I believe, out of Michigan. And Bark River is ran by a guy named Mike Stewart, and they use great steels. You can find any kind of material handle you want to, kind of fit your aesthetics pleasing, I guess you could say. From antler bone to like classic wood handles to all kinds of stuff. And you're going to spend a couple $100, but you're going to have a knife that can literally last a lifetime. If you're in an office setting, I would say go out and buy yourself, you got a Benchmade. Benchmade's a great knife. There's Spyderco's another really popular company. I kind of, for what I've gotten into, they're more of an entry-level point for me. I've gotten into the custom knives. I've ordered stuff from Russia. I order stuff from different parts of the world, and that's more of a collecting forte. But if you get a good Spyderco, like a good model, like the Paramilitary 2, it's just a great knife. You can pull it out, flip it open with one hand, close it with one hand, slide it in your pocket, and forget about it, which is cool.
Cool, man. So do you, what do you like to shoot? Because I know you like to shoot guns.
Oh, yeah. So I'm a Glock guy. I'm going to tell you right now. I love a good Glock 17 is what I have. It does have a red dot on it. Put a Zev slide. I like a good Glock because it's a good self-defense gun. It's very lightweight. It does have a little more recoil than like a full metal frame gun. But, I mean, I've had a lot of people that were beginners that started with Glocks, and they ended up being really good shooters. And I started with a Glock myself. And then I just recently picked up a Springfield 1911 45 ACP.
Okay.
That thing's a bit of a hand cannon. I'm still used to it. But I've only had it a week, so that was my birthday present to myself.
That was the the U.S. military's sidearm of choice for World War I, World War II, wasn't it?
That is correct, sir. That is definitely correct.
What about the gun laws in California? What do you carry a Glock 17 with like 9 rounds in it? What's the deal?
So the rule is I don't carry anything because you have to have a concealed carry permit here.
Okay.
Now, for you to get a concealed carry permit, you have to go to your local sheriff's department, and I forgot the one of the uppers is have to sign off on your paperwork, and the way you get them to sign off is you have to find there is no actual like structure to it. You have to have a good cause for you to be able to carry a gun every day. It's like if you're like, I would say maybe like you carry a lot of money for your kind of job that you do, or if you maybe are like a security guard or like a private security for somebody, then you could probably get them to sign off on it. It's kind of BS because they can tell you no if they don't like you,
Yeah.
So yeah, in LA County, because of crime rate and everything, it's nearly impossible to get a concealed carry here.
So they don't. So for your own personal protection, that's not that doesn't warrant enough for you to get a concealed carry license?
Nope, not in California. They have to decide that it's a good idea, not you.
Wow.
And, yeah, it's a bummer, man. The magazine, I know you mentioned the rounds, so you can have a 10-round magazine, so you can do a +1 if you rack it and put a fresh clip in there. But man, no more than that. I think there's a few people that from a long time ago that got larger capacity magazines grandfathered in before the law came into effect. But even that's kind of shaky around here. Everybody's very itchy. My friends always joke at me from out of state and say that I live in California. That's the ongoing joke. So yeah, they're not very friendly with gun laws. As a matter of fact, rifle restrictions, I'm sure you've seen on the news with the assault rifle ban and all that stuff. That's pretty hard too. So if you have like an AR-15 platform gun, if it's got a pistol grip, a forward grip, what they call evil features, there's a little list of them.
Evil features?
That's literally what they call it, the evil features. Then they classify it as an assault rifle. You have to register it with the government. And then once you register the gun belongs to you for life, and you are unable to pass that gun off to any family member or sell it to anyone. It's done deal. It's yours until you die and it gets destroyed.
Wow.
Yeah.
Evil features. Wow, that's I had no idea.
You really?
I live in Illinois, man, and I thought that the gun laws were pretty bad here, because the deal here is I carry a Glock 34, and I carry it with a +2 in the summertime and a +3 in the wintertime. But I'm thinking of getting a Glock 19, because I find that if I need to grab my pistol in the wintertime, and I have gloves on, even with the +3 on it, I have a hard time getting an initial grip on my pistol if I need to use it. But I mean, that's another conversation. But here, what they do is they have you can carry your pistol concealed, if you have your concealed carry license, into certain locations, but if they have a gun sign on it, you can't carry it in there. So everywhere has like this gun sign on it. It seems like as time goes on, more and more places have the little gun sign with the line through it on it. So it's like you can have your concealed carry license, but you can't carry it anywhere, So it's like I carry it out the door, I put it in my van, and then I take my wife to Dunkin' Donuts or whatever, and it's like they got the sign right there. Or I'll take him out to breakfast, and I see it right there. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go back to the van. I'll be right back. So I think it's absolutely ridiculous. If you're the things that people need to go through to get their concealed carry license, obviously that there aren't any kind of, I would generally say there aren't really any nefarious intentions, considering everything that you have to go through to get your license. So I don't understand why generally it's thought that if you set up these gun laws and the general, population of people who follow these laws, follow them, everything's fine. But what about the people who don't follow them? Do you know what I mean? Now you have a demographic of people that can't defend themselves, that are following the law, but now are turning into victims because of criminals who don't follow the law anyways.
So this is another great point, man. I mean, I have been trying to hit this home to everybody that I can think of. So with all these gun laws, it's exactly like you're saying. If you take the rights away from the law-abiding citizens who are going to carry a pistol to protect themselves and their family, and then you expect criminals to follow the same code? I mean, come on, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of having concealed carry. is that, and you know, and obviously it's hard for me to put myself in a criminal's mindset because I'm not a criminal. But I mean, if I try and I think to myself, well, if I'm walking down the street and I see this guy and I want him to be my target, right? Now, if I'm wondering if he's carrying a pistol on him, am I going to think twice about doing something?
I would.
Damn straight, I would too. It's not an easy target. You can die in the process of trying to rob this guy. Who knows what could happen, right?
Right.
So for them to say that if we put all these gun laws, which it's wrong in the first place because you're stripping the Second Amendment from everybody in the first place. And I think people forget what this whole Second Amendment thing was all about. It wasn't about, I think it was about arming the people. Yeah, I mean, it was about arming the people so that they can protect themselves against the government. But now it's kind of gotten to the point where the government's telling people, well, you can't protect yourself.
Yeah.
You know? And that's crazy to me.
Yeah, it's crazy to me too, because I think that generally, have you ever seen Antifa walk around and they'll harass people? You know, like, I think that generally there's a lack of respect that I don't want to, I'm not going to put this on a, maybe I can, I'll put it on a generation of people. Like back in the day, I'm 37 years old. Okay. So when I went to school and, you know, say somebody, says something about you, you know, or you say something about somebody else, chances are at lunchtime or at recess, they're going to bring it up to you and you might have to, get into a fight there. Okay. And that would happen, and you know, maybe somebody would get beat up, you know, and then from that point on, that person learned, you know, maybe I shouldn't talk to people that way, you know, because I could do this to somebody else and get beat up again in front of a bunch of chicks, and now the chicks don't want to talk to me because I'm getting beat up by people. Do you know what I mean? But what I'm getting at is, like, there's a life lesson there from making a mistake. Okay. Nowadays, people can get online and they can say whatever they want to people, and there's no repercussions from it. So there gets to a point where someone is they're just going to take it too far, you know, and they're going to do something that generally, if they would have hit that release valve earlier on somebody, that wouldn't have happened, you know. So I think that it comes down to people having a lack of respect from others, for others, and then those people not being checked on that lack of respect, you know.
Absolutely. But you know, it's a different time. I mean, you're 37. I just turned 39, so we're right around the same age bracket. And, you know, it's funny because I'm sure you heard your parents tell you, you know, damn your generation. Well, now I'm finding myself say, damn the generation after me, you know, like less respect, less, you know, it's kind of funny. But, I mean, it's just, everything's just gotten so out of control. And I'm sorry if I sound bad or whatever in any way, but I just blame it all on freaking social media, man. Yeah, and you know, actually that gets to my point of, you know, kids getting bullied on social media, you know, because could you imagine, okay, say somebody says something about you on social media and then you beat them up in front of the class and then that gets videoed. That kid is never going to be able to live that down, you know, like ever. He'll never be able to live that down because there'll be a video on his Facebook of him getting beat up, you know, and it probably won't even come up that, oh yeah, he actually antagonized this guy in the first place. It'll just be like, oh, this guy gets attacked by psycho kid at school. What's going on? It's video games, you know. Right. It's funny because it's a very powerful tool because you can really make something look and appear the way you want it to be. Yeah. It can be just by cutting out the earlier part where, you know, this guy was getting pushed around before he beat the crap out of the other guy. It could just be distorted in so many different ways. And I didn't have to deal with that when I was growing up. You know, it was just like you said. If something happened, you know, it happened right there live. And if you got into a fist fight, you got into a fist fight. At the end, everybody walked home. But then again, you know, when I was a kid, kids were outside playing on the street too.
Yeah.
You know, with no adult supervision. There's not a freaking adult for a mile.
Yeah.
Nowadays, I see all my neighbors. They're all, you know, if their kids are outside for like more than 5 minutes, they're like, hey, come inside, come inside. It's too, you know, like it's too dangerous.
Yeah.
It's a different world.
Yeah, it is. You know, like I remember, you know, at 7 years old, I was riding my bike to school, and I have a 6-year-old daughter, and I couldn't imagine like sending her out, even in a year from now, sending her out to just go to school and ride her bike to school, you know. And it's not that I don't trust her, you know, but it just seems like, who knows, maybe the media just reports it more, you know, with especially
right.
with child trafficking, you know, and actually brings up a point, you know. It's, you know, the media is, it seems like child trafficking and sex trafficking is getting to like it seems like an all-time high. But has it always been that bad and it's just never been covered? You know, like have these child trafficking rings, you know, been around for, you know, 20, 30 years, and now it's just coming to light? Or, you know, what do you think?
Well, that's funny, man. I've been wondering the same thing. It's even like when I see all these mass shootings and all these crimes, I mean, on the news every day, I'm like, is the world going nuts right now, or has it always been that way? But now there's just more access to information, and everybody's got their phone now, and, you know, I don't know, man. I mean, I just based on the fact of the way kids behave now, and like people in general behave now compared to, I say, when I was younger, I think people were different back then. There was a little bit more courtesy. Like, you know, a kid yelling at his parents in the supermarket was just not something I saw before.
You're gonna get worked over.
You know, and it might even happen live.
Yeah.
Right there in the store.
Yeah.
You know, but now, you know, parents are scared that the kids are going to call the cops, and the kids know this. And yeah, I don't know. It's just it's a weird place. And it's funny because I'm trying to wonder the same thing. And I have a 2-year-old daughter. She's 2.5. And, you know, I'm trying to think of like when she starts going to school, I'm trying to get myself mentally ready. And just like, I mean, I'm a nervous wreck, man, about everything. It's just like you said. I could never. I walked like almost 2.5 miles to school in junior high, and, you know, high school I took the city bus, you know, to school, and I couldn't picture putting my daughter on a city bus now to go to school, man.
Yeah,
like, it's a different world. I think it is a different world.
Yeah, it certainly seems so, you know, and it's probably because it's just so well documented now, you know, like there's child trafficking, and then say there's you know, we get into politics, and, you know, it's like everybody has skeletons in their closet, and then people say, oh yeah, you know, it wasn't like that back in the day, you know, we had great leaders back in the day, you know. And it's like, I don't know, you know, I think that I don't think you get to the top without having, you know, some kind of skeletons in your closet or doing some kind of dirt, you know. So I guess maybe you can just
they were better at hiding it.
Yeah, well, probably because there wasn't cameras everywhere, you know. Like now there's cameras everywhere you turn. Everybody's got a camera on their phone. You know, everywhere you go there's cameras. There's more accountability. You know, back in the day, it's like, okay, I'm going to write this guy a letter, and then I'm going to wait for him to respond. You know what I mean? And it's just not like that anymore. And I don't like to say that things are getting worse. I'd like to say things have kind of always been this way, but that it's more well documented now.
Well, I hope you're right.
I hope I'm right too. It's probably me just being an optimist.
No, you know, and it's better to be glass half full, you know, and if you're right, man, I'm happy about that. I just, you know, I don't know if it's me getting jaded as I get older or what it is, but man, I'm just more fearful all the time about stuff, just because of how much crap I see, you know?
Yeah.
And maybe when I was younger, you know, you're 20 years old, you don't care about that stuff.
Yeah.
But, you know, as you get older and you become a parent, and you're like, oh crap, you know, what if what if that happens to me, you know, or my daughter, or whatever it may be.
Yeah, I always like to prepare. I like to prepare for the worst and hope for the best in kind of a way, because, you know, I always tell my wife, I'm like, hey, why don't you, you know, just take a little preparation for this, you know, like, oh, you know, what are the chances of, you know, a certain situation happening? And it's like, okay, there's probably a slim chance of it happening, but I'm sure it has happened to somebody, you know, and if that person, when that thing does happen to you, it's a 100% chance, you know, and I'd rather be, you know, safe than sorry. Do you think, you know, looking at things nowadays, you know, like things have changed dramatically, say over the past 30 years,
Yep.
and how they've changed is that, you know, going into politics, is that, you know, we have people, you know, you have a certain candidate that runs, okay, and, you know, they get put onto a kind of like a pedestal in a way, and we've always looked at these people to be, they're supposed to be like a shining example of goodness and of virtue in a way, and it seems like nowadays that that's not necessary. We want that, but the people that we have that are running aren't those people yet. We still have to choose from like this group of individuals that maybe nobody really likes. Do you think that's becoming a problem?
Yeah. So that's a good point, because I was having a discussion with this, because, you know, everybody's running right now. They're starting.
500 people are running for president.
It's gotten more ridiculous over time as it goes. So like, you got all these candidates, and I think back in the day, the way I felt like, so to me, a politician is somebody who has the skill to appear everything that you want to be. They tell you everything that you want to hear, and they obviously probably have their own little agenda, like all politicians do, but they have a certain kind of set of standards that they kind of have in appearance and behavior and the way they're supposed to act, and I think that's going away, man. Like, now, I mean, I'm not surprised if I don't know. I mean, we did have, you know, Trump as the president now, who was
only in America.
Yeah, exactly, man. I had Arnold Schwarzenegger as the governor for a while.
That's awesome, though.
Oh, you know, it's kind of like anything goes now, you know, and you try to figure out which of the lesser evils is the better one.
Yeah.
You know, like, even like Nixon, right? Nixon, some people hated him, some people loved him, but he truly had that politician thing. Even Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton came in at an era where America was doing very well, and he got a lot of credit for that. And a lot of people like him because they say that America was at its best financially, and economy was the best at that time, and so on and so forth. But, you know, as far as what we're getting now, as far as candidates, it's almost like a circus show, man.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's just like nobody really cares about their external appearance. Nobody's cautious in saying things that might tweak someone's ear a little bit in the wrong way. Before, it seemed like they were trying to please everybody,
Yeah.
as best they can, the mass majority. Now people just like, hey, you know, come on and join over me on this crazy train, and here's what I think. You know?
Yeah. And it seems for some reason that, especially with the way things are going, that there's like an extreme right and there's like an extreme left. And
Yep.
and with that, it's like you're either one or the other, you know, and you have these people that are like, oh, if you're speaking to like a conservative, and, you know, maybe you don't agree with something on like the Second Amendment. Do you know what I mean? They're like, oh, you're not you're not pro 2A. It's like, actually I am, but you know, I just have a difference of opinion on what is acceptable for people to be carrying around. Like just for instance, say someone is like, I believe in the Second Amendment, but I don't think somebody should be able to walk down the street with an AR-15 over their shoulder. And they're like, well, you're not pro Second Amendment. It's like, no, that's not true. I believe you can carry a pistol on you, but I don't think, you know, people should be walking down the street with an AR-15 over their shoulder. And it's not about what do you need that AR-15 for. It's just like, what do you need to be walking down the street with it for? Do you know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, what are we in Somalia? I mean, come on. It's, you know, I saw this thing recently where this guy in Texas, it was right after the shooting too. And man, my heart goes out to all the victims, and you know, it's just, I don't know what the hell's going on right now with all these crazy people running around shooting people. I don't know if they're all on a forum or what's going on. But anyways, there's this guy in Texas who was walking around with an AR-15 on his back, you know, and he was preach around like, hey man, I can carry this, and you know, you guys can't tell me what to do. And the cops come, and you know, they're kind of like not sure what to do because it's kind of technicality, you know. But it goes back to what I said. I mean, what are we in Somalia? We're supposed to be civilized people.
Right.
We don't need a freaking AR-15. If you really want to defend yourself, go get a license, go get a pistol, go get some training, go buy some ammunition, waste it downrange, you know, and it's to protect yourself or your family in case something goes wrong. If you have any other kind of agenda behind owning a pistol, then you're wrong. I mean,
yeah, man. It's pretty. I would think that it would be pretty disconcerting, especially like if I saw that, I'd be like, "What the hell is this guy doing over here?" You know, I couldn't imagine. And I'm very comfortable with weapons, you know, and I couldn't imagine somebody that isn't comfortable with it, you know, and these types of examples are what make the argument about the Second Amendment, you know, so much worse than what it needs to be. Do you know what I mean? They're like, oh, look at this guy, this one guy, this one example, you know, this one guy. They're like, oh, okay, yeah, we should completely ban the Second Amendment. You know, aside from the other people that are carrying, you don't even know that they're carrying. Do you know what I mean? And and it's, you know, it's like it's like impossible to have middle ground. You know, like I tell people, I'm not a liberal, you know, and I'm not a conservative. You can consider me a liberal Republican or a conservative Democrat. You know, I like to consider myself a centrist in a way, because I mean there are things that I like from both sides. But then you mention that, and people are like, you can't have it both ways, and it's like, why the hell can't I? It's America, you know.
Well, and that's why when people ask me that question, like, hey, so where do you stand? And I'm going to advise you all who are listening to the podcast, that golden rule, you know, unless you really, you know, you have somebody friendly in front of you, it's never a good idea to talk politics.
Yeah.
Really doesn't go anywhere. But
religion too.
Religion too. Absolutely.
That'll probably go even further than politics, man. You'll get people ready to go to blows over that.
Oh, even especially in other countries too, man.
Oh, I'm sure.
But yeah, but you know, just like you, I see policies in both ends that are pretty good, you know, and can be beneficial. It's just they have to be in certain situations, you know, and looked at a certain way. And so when people ask me the question, I tell them, you know what, I'm neither. That's pretty much my answer. I'm not a Republican, not a Democrat, because just like you said, if I label myself as one or the other, then that means that I have to basically like and follow everything that particular group is going to go by. And, you know, I mean, truthfully, it's just like you said, I'm good with a pistol for concealed carry, but don't bring an AR-15 down the street, guys.
Yeah. And it's like on top of that, it's like, I'm not saying that you can't own one. I'm saying that you can't just walk down the street with one. Could you imagine being a cop? You come onto the scene and you have two people in an argument and one guy's got an AR-15. Immediately, I'm going to be like, oh, God, you know, what's going on here? What's this guy thinking? Like, because who knows what it could be? I mean, being a cop, you don't know what's going on. I mean, you don't know that this guy is just trying to just trying to blow smoke, especially
Right.
with what's going on in today's day and age. This could be like the pretext of a mass shooting. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I'd hate to be like a cop in that kind of situation.
And I'm glad you brought something else up that I like to bring up. I'm actually going to be applying to the sheriff's department next year.
Sweet.
We'll see what happens. I'm kind of old, so we'll see if I can still get in. But so cops are a lot less popular now. I mean, I don't know about in your side of the country, but right now where I'm at, there is ads for LAPD, LA Sheriff's Department over Facebook, everywhere. They're trying to hire like crazy because nobody wants to be a cop. And I think that's really freaking sad that, we're not even respecting our law enforcement people like we should. They're getting a lot of flack nowadays, especially in California. So that's, like when I was a kid, if you wanted to be a cop, you had to be good, you had to really try, and there wasn't a whole lot of openings. It's like being a firefighter, you had to fight your way to get into it.
Yeah.
Law enforcement now, it's like, come one, come all. We need you.
Yeah.
Whoever you come, like they're advertising everywhere. And, it's just like you say, like there's been like so many things about them, shooting unarmed citizens and things like that. But if you put yourself in these people's shoes, they are risking their lives every day. And if you walk up to a car and you have no idea what that person has in the car, what they're doing, you could be doing a random traffic stop and who knows what can happen. And I've seen it.
Yeah.
I've seen plenty of videos of it. I've seen it on the news. Poor cops, dying on the street just over a traffic violation,
Yeah, it's brutal, man. And I always say that, like no matter how you feel about cops, there's something that everybody needs to understand, is that as a society, we've given the police officers certain power over our society, and what they're supposed to do is provide law and order, so that the rest of us don't run around like freaking animals. And that's their job, is to provide law and order. And us as citizens, we're supposed to give them that respect. So when you see a police officer, you're like, oh, okay, this guy's here. He wants to talk to me about freaking something. I'm going to comply with what he says, and then I'm going to take off. How often is it that when a cop comes up to you and he's like, hey, can I talk to you for a second? You're like, yeah, sure. Oh, what's this? Oh, this is this. Okay, go about your day. Right. Then someone else who is like, hey, can I come talk to you for a second? They're like, I know my rights. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, hold on, dude. Let's not. Yeah. Let's not, because I suspect something's going on here. What do you have in your pocket? You don't have. You need a warrant to come and search and seizure me. Do you know what I mean? Then it turns into. And then it never ends well. And it happens every single time. And I always tell people, I'm like, just comply with what they want. Show them like, hey, I'm not a threat to you. I'm not a threat to society, and I guarantee you they'll let you go. Do you know what I mean? They've got more important things to worry about.
Oh, absolutely. And and it's even me. Like I, even when I get pulled over. So the one thing people shouldn't ever do is be disrespectful to a cop first off, because if it's just like a chef or a cook or anybody else messing with your food. Yeah. Mechanic messing with your car. If you want a good result out of it, just try to be nice. The guy's just doing his job. And we're all people. Maybe there's one out there who's gonna be a dick. But
yeah. I'm not saying that there aren't any, bad cops out there. Obviously there are. With any profession that you go to, there's going to be somebody that doesn't meet the standard. But it's not the normal. That's the exception to the rule.
It's what we call in the military the 3%.
Those Blue Falcons.
Yeah. There's one in every crowd.
Yeah.
So, but these guys are just trying to come home to their family, guys. Like I always, even simple stuff. I get stopped by a cop. I I know that guy is armed with a gun, and I know that he's already wondering what's going to happen when he pulls me over. So first thing I do, I put my hands on the steering wheel, both of them, where he can see it, right? Then, you know, when he comes near to the window where he can see my hands, I roll the window down after he can see my hands, right? And then I talk to him. And then I keep my hands still on the steering wheel. And then if I'm going to put my hand in my pocket to pull out my driver's license, I ask him permission first. And this kind of like, hey, may I? Okay, watch me because I'm about to reach in my pocket to get my wallet kind of attitude, and this stuff has gotten me off so many tickets, guys. The guy's usually cool. You know, they're just doing their job. So that's the way I look at it.
I do the same exact thing. Like I usually roll my window down before when I hear them getting out of the vehicle, I'll roll my window down. I'll put my license and my registration and my insurance in my hand, and I'll put my hand on the steering wheel. The guy walks up. I'm like, I got it for you right here. And I'm like, and then usually he goes back, then he comes back, he runs everything, comes back. He's like, do you know why I pulled you over? I'm like, I have no idea. And he's like, your rear right tail light is out. I'm like, yeah, see, you know, that's something that you don't, unless you do like a PMCS every time you start your vehicle, you know, which I don't do. You know, I'm like, oh, okay, cool, thanks for letting me know. And he's like, yeah, and you were going a little fast. I'm like, oh, okay. I probably was, you know, I'm sorry. And he's like, all right, well, just don't do it next time. And that's like 95% of the time. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
So, but I'm sure if I was like, I don't have to give you my license because I know my rights. You know what I mean? And you don't have to see it, you know, or something. Because they have those. Have you seen those YouTube videos of people doing that? Like people who say that they know their rights and then they don't comply with the police officers.
Oh, absolutely. Give them a whole hard time. Make them wait for an hour. Ask them for which penal code is it. Stuff. I'm like, you don't even know what the penal code is. What you? Yeah. It could have been a 5-minute conversation. You just drowned it like a whole thing. I look at the cop, and sometimes they make the cop look dumb. But I feel bad for the cop. I don't feel bad for the assholes trying to give him a hard time. You know?
Yeah, but they're there for like an hour after doing all this, too, and you could just been right up on your way.
And then there's another cop that comes to see what's going on.
Yeah, hopefully it's not Cobra coming for you, you know?
Oh, yeah, man. It's just a shit show. But, you know, those are just people trying to be smart asses, man. They need to get a life. They got nothing better to do. Obviously, they're not at work at the time where they should be.
Well, cool, man. I really appreciate you coming on the podcast and taking some time out to come out and have a conversation. Why don't you give everybody where they could find you on social media and your YouTube channel?
Yeah, absolutely, man. Again, thanks for inviting me. I had a great time. I love the podcast. I'm a listener. No, he did not pay me to say that. My name is Alex, and you can find me on Instagram under Alex_Knifebox. And that's just my knife collection, Instagram. You're welcome to message me there if there's any interest in that. And then you can find me on YouTube under Alex's Knifebox with the apostrophe. And there... we could talk about knives. Yeah, guys, check out his YouTube channel because they're very concise reviews, and if you're looking to buy a knife, I would definitely check out his page because I've checked out a few videos, and he normally goes into incredible detail on the knives and what to take into consideration. But Oh, and one more thing I forgot to mention. I have a podcast too.
Oh, okay.
I was throwing that out there. Podcast is Sharp Talk, and it's between me and 3 other YouTube channels, reviewers, and you can find us on iTunes and Spotify and Podbean, and I think we're on YouTube too, actually, under the Sharp Talk, so check us out there too. Cool. All right, I'm done.
Well, once again, man, thanks for coming on. Thanks, guys, for listening. I appreciate everybody who tunes into the podcast and listens and is recently watching the YouTube page. I'm very appreciative, and I'll talk to you guys next time. This is Alex and Pri out.